Okay, so hello Chito and welcome to this interview. And thank you for taking part in this project to spread awareness about the climate crisis and its effect all over the world. Uh, well, first things I wanted to ask you is how is the climate crisis impacting your country, and what are the most common consequences you are facing in the Philippines regarding this problem?
Okay. Thank you, Eduardo, for having me today. Uh, there is actually a lot of things going on in the country right now when it comes to the climate crisis. Uh, but in our organization, Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, we have three main campaigns. Basically, it's pointing out the things that we need to focus on, the biggest effects of the climate crisis. So, one, there's the mining and reclamation issues in different parts of the country. So, they do they do small scale mining and also large scale mining in different parts of the Philippines, uh, whether it be from small islands to the big mountains, and it's affecting different communities. Uh, and also a lot of people that are near the area. And aside from that, also the extreme weather events that our country is facing right now. The Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries when it comes to the climate crisis. So the effects of the typhoons, for example, and the drought to adapt to them because uh, it's yes, it's a lot to it's a lot to adjust to. And also with this, I think the effects are not only environmental but also social, with the way people are reacting to the climate crisis. Of course, people are starting to speak up about it. uh, and then the people who are in power realize that there is dissent coming from those being affected the most by the climate crisis. So uh, sometimes there is resolution, but oftentimes there is what we call red tagging here in our country. People are being silenced. Think state forces are being used against the activists that are trying to speak up against what's going on in our country right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to ask you next. Like, you're a climate activist there, and I want to ask you, what is it like to be a climate activist in the Philippines, and what are the challenges you are facing there? Like, you mentioned some of them. If you want to talk a bit more about this.
Yes, so when people think about climate activists, I think the assumption is that we just fight for the climate, I guess, whatever that means. But in the Philippines, our fight is very multi-sectoral and intersectional. So think when we've talked about the demonstrations you did yesterday, you were also with other sectors, and that's what's also happening in the Philippines. So it's a lot of alliance building with other sectors such as farmers, the fisher folk, the laborers, indigenous peoples, and I think that also comes with it comes with a certain danger of being associated as terrorists, for instance, or basically being labeled as people to watch out for, even though uh, activism is not something to be frowned upon. It should be something that should be welcomed because these are people who are trying to point out problems that are happening in society right now. And if we don't listen to them, then what's going to happen to the people on the ground? In
Sure.
the in in the Philippines, I guess I think, or rather, I think um, a lot of the people that are being targeted are also farmers, indigenous peoples. These are the people that are at the front lines. They're the environmental defenders that are at risk, and we try our best as youth climate activists to share the platform with them and also spread the stories of people who are being affected and being targeted by the government as well.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know that in protesting in Europe is not the same as doing it elsewhere, and we have a
Yes.
immense privilege to do so, even if it's now our rights are being eroded by government that are implementing a lot of repressions against us, but still it's not the same as countries outside Europe. And so yeah, I think that we also in Europe we have to work knowing this privilege and
Yes.
uh, and protesting even stronger. And in general, what do you think is the most powerful thing that we can do to solve the climate crisis?
That's a good question. I think the most powerful thing that
Right.
we can do right now is consolidate our efforts, work towards collective action. Uh, I think individual actions should be encouraged as well, but at the same time, collective action is what gets the job done. When we look at youth climate activism, not only in the Philippines, but also the rest of the world, we see that the youth come from different sectors. We have our own different backgrounds. We come from different places that have different stories when it comes to experiencing the climate crisis. And when we work together to create plans regarding climate action, when we put into account um, what we are actually witnessing in our own communities, in our own sectors, I think our action becomes much more holistic, and it gives us a better understanding of where actually are we? Where are we situated in our fight against the climate crisis? It gives us a better idea of how people are coping or how people are adapting and mitigating these effects. And also, um, it would very much help if people were educated about what's going on in the climate crisis, especially here in the Philippines. And I think that's something that collective action can achieve because there's a lot of people behind this cause. Then more people will be tuned in, and more people would also be interested on what's going on in the climate crisis and how they can solve it as Filipinos and also as members of the youth.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I perfectly agree with you. And I think that, yeah, being formed and also doing individual actions, but in a collective way. And I think that only being in a collective brings you political power because we, as individual, we cannot do a lot of stuff, but being together and refusing the idea of individualism always it is something that can change the world, that can ultimately solve the climate crisis.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I wanted to thank you very much. If you want to add something as you wish, we can add, and then
Yeah, I just want to add that I'm very grateful that you guys are reaching out to us, but also the fight goes beyond the activists in the global south. You know, there's definitely more people that also deserve platforms such as these, and I hope that in the near future we continue to consolidate our efforts, realize our power as members of the youth and as climate activists, and I hope that we all get to work together soon as well.
yeah, I completely agree with you, and thank you so much for taking part in this interview.
Thank you for having me.